Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome one, welcome all to SimSpeed TV. It's time for what we're hoping is going to be a fantastic sim racing championship here in the AusNZ Sim Sphere. It's round one of the Shannons Insurance NTE series from Sandown Motor Raceway. This is going to be absolutely fantastic. We've got two races in two categories tonight, starting up with the development series in the Toyota GR86 Cup cars, and then of course NTE series in the V8s for a 40-minute race with a mandatory pit stop for fuel. To bring it to you all live here on SimSpeed TV is, of course, myself, Reese Gardner. I'm joined by Daniel Leet and Hayden McMahon in the commentary box, and Jay Kennedy on production, as per usual here at SimSpeed. Well, guys, this is going to be a fantastic series. We've got quite a few rounds of very exciting racing coming up here. Daniel, I'm looking forward to it. How about you?
Yeah, thanks, Reese. Mate, I'm really looking forward to this. We saw a cracking run for the 2022 season for the NTESERIES Cup, and then coming back here then this year, it's all things a go. We've got, as you say, the advent of the Development Cup, which is going to be good to see some of those guys maybe a little further down on the I rating getting a chance to battle it out. No holds barred in the GT86s, but the big thing is going to be how the guys get around here tonight in the Supercars.
Yeah, absolutely. Hayden, it's been really fantastic to see Shannons come on board as the title sponsor of NTE series. Very big coup for Australian sim racing right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Shannons obviously supporting not just E-Series racing, but grassroots motorsport and car events as far as the eye can see. So it's something that means a lot to Shannons, is being out here for the grassroots and really supporting this type of thing. And, you know, from my perspective, I'm just really glad to be here, back here, and hopefully going to see some great racing. And it's a real coup for the NTE series to also have a development series now to have this new wave coming through that want to be up there racing with the big dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. This is absolutely fantastic series of events, and it's starting, of course, at one of Australia's most iconic racetracks, Sandown, in the southeast of Melbourne. And, well, Dan, I definitely think Sandown has got a really brilliant place in Australian motorsports. Of course, it is in a little bit of danger in the real world, but thank goodness iRacing got there with their laser scanning equipment and preserved it in digital form indefinitely, because this is a track that really throws up good racing. Plenty of straights, some heavy braking zones, and big curbs designed to catch the drivers out.
Well, that's it. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. The curbs are going to be the critical thing for all the guys to be able to navigate their way around here and get not only a quick lap time, but also set up some options for overtaking. The run down to turn one is always here. It's a nice long start for the guys to try and get their way into, but it's a tricky corner. It falls away on the off track. 2, 3, up into 4. We're bound to see plenty of carnage there, much like we do in the real world when the guys head there in the supercars, but those curbs there are very tough to get through and make the passes stick. The final one will be the big one in the brake zone down into turn 9 at end of Dandenong Road there. We're going to see the guys maybe locking up a few wheels in the supercar, a few late lunges trying to get those moves done, but it's going to be really interesting to see where these guys decide they want to pick up those options, and then throw into the mix too, as you said earlier, they've got a pit stop that they need to get over and accomplished, and how they want to play that strategy game is going to be all important.
Yeah, indeed. Hayden, let's think about how the Development Cup guys are going to be tackling this one, because the GR86 Cup car, definitely a nimble one, but these big curbs at Sandown, they tend to rock these cars about a bit, and already a pretty lively rear end on this thing. They're going to be racing for 20 minutes, and there's plenty of opportunities for a potential rollover if they get the curb strikes wrong.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty tricky to keep the little 86 there. They're a fantastic sport. It's very, very nimble, very, very light, and very good little base for a racing car. So, you know, big curbs aren't really a lot of fun with this type of car. You're going to want to try to stay off them a little bit, because we don't want to see cars end up on their roof. But hey, that's iRacing, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. Well, either way, that's how things are going to stack up for this event. 15 minutes of practice, which is well and truly over by now. They're currently about 5 minutes into that 15-minute qualifying session. Not going to be getting very many opportunities to get a clean lap in there. And of course, that 20-minute race with no safety cars, and it's an out-and-out sprint here. No required pit stops, and demonstrating those big curbs. One of our drivers here in the form of Jack Gray in car number 7, keeping it tight off the exit of turn 4, and then down this long back stretch, coming up to a very challenging sequence of corners here, Dan. The S is coming down the hill. You can take a lot out of the right-hand curb, but it's very easy to pick up an automated slowdown penalty at this location.
Well, it is there, and as you come through this section, you on the throttle as much as possible to try and get the most out of these cars. We watched Jack launch the thing up there over the turn 7-8 curbing. It's just finding that fine line. I mean, when you look at the times that the guys are setting out here at the moment, we're within a couple of tenths of a second of each other for the top half a dozen drivers at the moment. So any little advantage you can get as he runs the curve nicely through 11 out onto 12 is going to make a key to getting yourself up towards that sharp end on the grid. And I'm sure that a lot of the main series drivers will all be keeping an eye on this to try and pick up those little tidbits of information as to where they can place their cars later on for the next race.
With about 8.5 minutes remaining in the session, the quickest time belongs to Ross Thalen in car 166, 1 minute 23.289. And the field spread is looking to be about 3 seconds at the moment of the drivers that have set times. Hayden, Michael Gore is currently the slowest out there, 1 minute 26.1. But we just saw Cameron Edwards in car 11 shoot the order, going to P2, and he is just 1,000th of a second behind Ross Thalen at the moment. Well, Cam Edwards, who runs the V-Race Experience Simulator Hub here in Western Australia, just outside, just in the middle of Osborne Park, he is looking very quick in this car.
Yeah, it's some tight gaps there. So, you know, I think the assumption is always we see a bit of a spin there. The assumption is the development guys aren't necessarily going to be quite as quick as our main game drivers, but there's some familiar names out there, and there's also some really tight sort of margins here in qualifying. So, you know, don't be mistaken, we're up for some brilliant racing here.
Here's Tyrone Anderson coming up to the spot where we just saw Edwards spin, and looks like Cam's just gotten going in time, and that means that Anderson can pick up a little bit of slipstream here. Tyrone currently in 3rd place. He is only half a tenth or so behind Edwards and Thalen in the top 3. So let's see what car 47 can do. I just noticed on my own exterior view, he was flashing the headlights there. He wants Cam to get out of the way here, and it looks like there's a bit of a difference in closing speed here. Oh, Edwards jumps out of the way, but that's thrown off Tyrone Anderson, and he is not happy with that one.
No,
you could see that through the mustache, couldn't you? That was not going well.
Yeah, Dan, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a bit of a tricky spot. We saw with Edwards having that loop up in turn 4 there, didn't probably need to be in the way, especially with the guys a little bit further back, Tyrone coming through on a hot lap. But it's one of those points, the guys are trying to get themselves back up to race pace, and as Tyrone just put it up against the curbs there and the car got unsettled, be very quick to get the hands up in the air after that one. So he'll be bitterly disappointed.
Yeah, he will. This guy's not very disappointed, though. Currently on the top of the timesheets, Mr. Thalen. Of course, Edwards with a more or less equal time. So Ross evidently and very understandably will see himself to be in a little bit of trouble here. He's going to have to pull out all the stops to try and extend that gap out the front. You'll notice also on the sponsor ticker in the top right, we've got Virtual Racing School up there. Well, all setups for the Shannons Insurance NTE series are provided by Virtual Racing School. Fixed setup series, both in development and in the main game. And these guys are competing also for Virtual Racing School coaching package as well, Dan. VRS giving that development series winner a little bit of extra training in their sim exploits. As we see, all running a bit wide there at turn 1, unfortunately, for Michael Gore, who remains the driver at the bottom of the standings, but you can tell he's having a lot of fun there, Hayden. Have a look at his VR headset. Plenty of drivers running VR and sim racing now, and you know, I guess Michael doesn't really care about setting a quick lap time at the moment. You can see the smile on his face. He's really enjoying himself out there.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like with VR and multi-screen setups, I've ran both over the years. It's immersion, what you're looking for, more than actually necessarily improving your speed. There's definitely an advantage so far as, you know, being able to have that peripheral vision, in being able to not, you know, hit people that are next to you. But for the most part, it's just all about immersion. In a VR headset, you are fully in the car and at a wheel. It's a lot of fun to physically be in that car, pushing it to the limits. And, you know, sometimes you're not going to push it to the car's limit. You might hit your own first, but the main thing is that you can have a really good time. And Michael Gore, he's been with the NTE series for a long time here with the Shannons NTE series, so he's well known for having a good time out there.
Well, we just saw some really big changes at the top of the standings. Jack Gray elevating himself to second, and Cam Edwards running a time good enough for pole at the moment. That is 7/10 taken out of Ross Thallen's provisional pole time. He now goes to third in car 166. So plenty to be said by many of the drivers in the dying moments of this session. Now, this is not run to the heat format, being a single race, and that means that once the clock hits 0, if you've already started your final hot lap, you should be able to complete it. So drivers will be looking to get themselves out on track for their final run here. These cars, Daniel, they run a compound of tyre that is close to road specification. It means that they take a little bit to get up to temperature and get those maximum times in.
Yeah, they do take a little while to find sort of their step in where you can get the most out of these cars. So the opening few laps when we get into race time will be interesting as the guys come out on those fresh tyres. But right now, with 2.5 or just over 2.5 minutes left on the clock, it's all about trying to build that temperature as quick as possible and get underway to set a quick time. And as you were mentioning before, Cam Edwards dropping up to the top of the tree at the moment. There's a few interesting sector times starting to come in from a few of the guys. Jack Gray was about 1/10 quicker last time through on his final lap. Not enough to quite close the gap down, but he's looking pretty comfortable there. And if he builds that tyre pressure the way he was doing it, should be right to go.
Well, that was a bit concerning there for Cam Edwards. It seems that his connection having a little bit of a wobble there in the final corner. He does end up setting a time from that, but it's a bit off the pace. What will Jack Gray be able to do here? Coming down through the S's, hard on the brakes for Dandenong Road. Turns it in, takes a lot out of the curb. That is the optimum line. That's the one you want to take. Down to the final chicane now. This is a very challenging corner here, Hayden. You go fast on the way in, and you've got to be careful over that curb once again. And it's all about the exit here onto the start-finish straight.
Yeah, you got to maximise your speed onto the straights. It's a rule pretty much every track you go to around the world. But that was a lot of curb. That was a big bounce. And we spoke about that with these 86s. They're going to get pretty airy on these bounces. Here we go again.
Yeah, on the Shannons replay, this is the run through Dandenong Road earlier, and oh dear, car 39, that's Michael Gore, having another problem with the rear end breaking free in those tight corners. Well, not much time left now for the drivers to get themselves on the road, as that's another connection issue there, this time for Ross Thallen, who has fallen to 4th place. Tyrone Anderson also putting in a good time, but we see the effect that going for a few laps in a qualifying stint really has on your lap times. Cam Edwards is over a full second faster than Ross Stalin is at the moment. Let's see how it goes through the final chicane. That's wide through the last left-hander and into the tyre barriers. Oh, well, that's going to be that run over there for Ross Stalin, and I don't think we'll be able to see any quicker times out of him. Current fastest lap for Brad Minshall, meanwhile. He has just gotten across the line in time for one final attempt at a hot lap. Just avoid the curb on the inside of turn 1 and then hard on the brakes for this chicane, Daniel. Let's see how much curb he takes out of this one. Not much, but hey, stability is the name of the game in these cars more often than not.
Absolutely. That was a really nice run there through 2 and 3 there for Minshall. Just picked up a little bit of that curb on the entrance, kept off it through turn 3 and fired it nicely down to 4. Setting up for a good run here down towards the end of Dandy Dong Road. He's got Michael Gore just a little bit further up the road, who shouldn't impede his run here. But as we say on board the onboard shot, we'll get a look at how quick these cars are down off the back straight, and you see him just drop the nose in, flicks it in nicely. He's going to use all that curb, much like we've seen the guys use tonight, and gets it stood up nicely down into turn 9.
Yeah, look pretty stout there on turn in. See what Minshall can do. Currently in 6th place, and if he only gains 1/10, he will jump up 2 more positions to 4th. Let's see if he can nail this. Down through the final corner he comes, use all the curb again on the exit, and then keep it nice and tight towards the start-finish line. Shorten the run as much as possible. What is the time going to be for Minshall? It's going to be a 1:23.5. He was not able to get a time good enough in to really improve his standing there. But still, 6th in a field of 14 cars is nothing to sneeze at. And it looks like that is pretty much everyone done with the qualifying session. And that means we can start going through the grid here. So car 11, Cameron Edwards, on pole position for the first round of the Shannons NTESeries Development Cup. And that's going to be Jack Gray joining him on the front row there, with Anderson and Thalen taking up row 2. Top 6 rounded out by Matthew McMillan and Bradley Minshall. Pretty good representation from WA there, which is good for a sandgroper like me. Dylan Seitz and Snow Cotter will share 7th and 8th, with John Van Ree and Michael Latter rounding out the top 10. James Zeitz and Mick Power of Queensland will round out the top 12 here, and then we've got Michael Gore and Shane Newens, the last 2 drivers in this field, though Newens did not set a time in qualifying. We do have a safety car in there as well. Let's check out these conditions. It's pretty overcast out there, though the B-roll shows some very bright sunlight. It's actually quite cloudy at the moment. Dan, this is going to be interesting here for the drivers. A very cold track.
Yeah, the little bit of overcast conditions will definitely help with the tyres towards the back end of the stint. Maybe going to hurt them a little bit as the guys try and get these things off the line and build that temperature early on. But for the long run, it's going to be really good, and we're looking forward now to what will be a fantastic 20 minutes of the first ever Development Series Cup race.
Hayden, what are your thoughts here on the first lap? It's a pretty long run to turn 1, but it's also quite open, so there's plenty of potential here for passes in the opening sector, also equal potential for crashes.
Yeah, and you see it a lot. You see it in real racing, you see it in iRacing, you see it in sim racing all the time. The first lap is always going to be danger zone. Going into the first corner is always pretty hairy, but I'd be betting turn 9 is going to be a pretty interesting spot too. These guys are going to be pushing it really hard, and any position you get early, they're a lot easier to get in that first lap than they are to get in the later stages. So these guys are going to be out there to try to make a lot of moves real early, but it all starts with a strong start.
Yeah, and it's going to be very important to get that strong start, because as you can see, the grid is the rows are not staggered, so they'll be starting quite alongside each other. We've got John Van Ree on the bottom there, and of course we've got Michael Gore and Tyrone Anderson up on the top row. Those are the drivers joining us on Zoom tonight, and Anderson strapping himself in. Got to keep that immersion up, and we tick down through the seconds. as these drivers get amped up and ready to take the start. Now, in another series that we broadcast here on SimSpeed TV, Aussie Online Gaming Summer of GR86, one thing that we saw quite a bit was drivers struggling to get these cars off the line. It's very difficult to do a standing start in these things despite their relatively low power. And again, we see those problems for Ross Thallen and Cameron Edwards. That might define how this race goes. Here we go then. Revs are rising, and we get ready to go for the Shannons NTESeries Development Cup, and that is a very slow start from just about everybody, but the best of them all was Jack Gray. He is going to lead the way into the first turn here. Cameron Edwards now under threat from Tyrone Anderson, who's going to try and have a look up the inside there. Ross Thallen holding the outside very well through turn one. That's going to give him the inside for the entry to the chicane, but who is going to get the best run through? Does seem that Thallen and Anderson, they are fighting hard over that position and losing time to the top two already. Out onto the straight. Make sure you don't make any contact, boys. Anderson tight out of the exit of turn 4. That might give a run to McMillan, Minchell, and Seitz behind. Here we go then, Dan. This is going to be a pretty hectic first lap for these last positions in the top 10.
It sure is. Anyone would think this is the final lap of a 4-hour race, the way they're going at the moment. But all the elbows are out. The guys are on the move up the grid here. Anderson just in a bit of an awkward spot there on the outside, down into through turn 9, down into Dandenong Road. Gets the move done though, and that will see him move up now ahead of Brad Minchell, Matt McCullen in the mix there as well. As we just see another driver just running off a little bit wide there at the back. Everyone throughout the whole field, mate, has done a fantastic job getting these cars underway.
Yeah, it's been a clean first lap so far. Touch wood, the two BCF cars of Michaels, Gore and Power negotiating each other very nicely. Of course, that gives a pretty good run while to Michael Gore. Sorry, it was John Van Ree and the other BCF GR86. Typical round one nerves going there. Wouldn't be a SimSpeed broadcast without a Gardner gaff as Minchell goes up the inside. That's a huge dive at turn 1. It hasn't worked out for him though. Anderson gets the run round the outside to retake the position. Oh, goodness me. That was pretty intense there, and it's not over here, Hayden, because Minchell is still trying to get past Anderson.
Oh! Not letting up at all. There's a bit of drum. Oh, there's a...
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
He's not giving him an inch at all. He's definitely let him know he's there, and this will go all the way down into turn 9.
That was Michael Power going for a big old tumble in car 99 in the background, so let's see how they go then into turn 9. Better run for Minchell on the way into the corner. Will Anderson yield? Oh, they just come close to making contact, and they'll continue to run side by side through the first part of the S's, but seems that Minchell has it. No, he hasn't. Goodness me.
He's cooked it hard.
Oh, into the tyre barrier as well, as there are 3 cars off in the back. Zeitz, Van Ree, and Latter all making a visit to the sand pit as through the final corner now. That position's negotiated there for Matthew McMillan. Dylan Seitz has to yield to that. Here we go. First Shannon's replay of the race here. And this is what happened to... Oh, goodness. Yeah, that's no good. That's a bit of an issue there for Michael Power there, who's come back to the pits to get that damage repaired. Meanwhile, back out on the racetrack, Seitz and Matthew McMillan continuing to fight over this position. Yeah, that was a big move, wasn't it, Hayden?
Yeah, no, that sort of came out of nowhere. He did it very clean, like he was passing someone standing still. But we've seen a bit of simultaneous spins there from the 86s.
Yeah, Seitz going for half spin, and that's Tyrone Anderson, who was in 4th place at the start of that lap. Something has gone horrifically wrong for him. Seems that it was a mistake all on his own. He just won. So now he is out of contention for the podium, Daniel. That is going to really hurt, especially considering how short this race is.
It certainly will. I wouldn't mind betting we'll see him bring that car back into the lane following that one, but we'll see how that unfolds. The battle up front, however, has really started to heat up now with Jack Gray and Cam Edwards. Less than half a second between them. They've opened up an extraordinary gap already over Ross Thallen, now sitting in that 3rd position while the battle in between him and Tyrone Anderson was going on. But the 2 out front are doing it very nice at the moment for the opportunities to come through, and not compromising either of the guys on any lap time at the moment.
Yeah,
some-
Edwards is out there setting some blinder laps. So is Jack Gray, but Edwards seems to have the wood on him. He's a couple of tenths quicker in the last couple of laps. So Edwards is definitely kind of in the driver's seat here from the back.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of driver's seats, there's Cameron Edwards' view there on the bottom with Jack Gray's view up top, and you can see how close they are. And that was a good time from Edwards a lap, 1 minute 23.282. That was nearly 2 tenths faster than Jack Gray. And the speeds are low in these cars, and it's not a hugely long back straight here at Sandown compared to some other straights that we'll see in this series, but there's still quite a bit of slipstream here that we'll be seeing from these cars. And all too soon, they're coming up on their first bit of lap traffic in the form of Michael Power, who's gotten a fast repair done on car 99 and is back out on the racetrack. Immediately pulls over and gives the room to our leaders to let them through here at the end of this straight. Meanwhile, battle for 9th and 10th. Latter and Gore fighting hard over this position. And it seems that Latter has gained an extra position on that one, I think, thanks to... might have been Anderson still trying to recover from that spin that he got on at the first lap. So now we go into the mid-phase of the race, Daniel, and I gotta say, it doesn't feel like 6 minutes have passed. There's been so much happening so far.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like I say, it's hard to believe we're at that point. I mean, we've seen some great racing right at the front of the pack. We've seen some awesome racing through the midfield, a few little incidents here and there, but the racing as a whole has been quite enthralling to watch. So hopefully, with the next 14 minutes or 13 and a half minutes still remaining on the clock, we're going to see much the same for that. Now, the gap at the front end really holding pretty steady there, 0.6 of a second as we watch the two leaders navigate their way through the traffic there. And for the guys that are a lap down now, not really getting in the way too much. They're just putting their own line, lifting where need be, and that's what we want to see them do.
It's mature racing, keeping an eye on that rear view mirror, staying out of the way. Wow, that's a big moment from Edwards there. It's definitely what you want to see. You want to see those guys. This is a development series, so it's where you learn to real race craft, and it's really important, regardless of what level you're racing, to know when you need to get out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with that. Of course, it's helped by Sandown being a pretty wide circuit, so there's a lot of space for these drivers to give. And it's also, a medium-sized, I'd say. If there were 10 more cars out there, then, oh no, that's a bit of an issue there behind Cameron Edwards. Who was that? That was Dylan Seitz, unfortunately, losing his bonnet thanks to a big old spin through that first chicane. Looks to me like it was yet another case of a driver just losing the rear end on an entry, Dan. That is a big issue there.
Yeah, it's a tricky one with these little cars. As you're saying before, they're not the quickest thing in a straight line. We're seeing top speeds of just under 200 k's an hour, but the tricky part is getting them to rotate left and right through that chicane area with the big change of direction, and trying to hold that back of these cars. And as we said earlier, it's a fixed setup, so it may not be a case that these cars are going to feel the most comfortable for all the drivers, but it certainly makes it tricky to wise as we watch the guys firing down into turn 9 there. That was a bit of a sketchy moment there.
Yeah, and as we check out Tyrone Anderson here running side by side with James Zeitz, of course, still damaged as Tyrone and trying desperately to hold on to positions. This behaviour that we're seeing from a lot of these cars, Hayden, you told us before we went live, you're actually the owner of a Toyota 86 in the real world, and I suppose you have a bit of insight into how this car behaves in the real world because you've competed in some events with it yourself. Very nimble cars.
Yeah, they're brilliant, nimble little chassis. They're very light. They're very responsive. They're very tail happy, which we're seeing a lot of here. I've done hill climbs and time attacks and these types of things with probably a similar grade of low-end road tyre. And the thing is, they're very controllable. They tell you a long time before they're going to go, but they do go a lot. They spend a lot of time sideways. It's a lot of fun, but it's not particularly fast, and it's not to everyone's taste either. So We don't know exactly what the setup is, but they're definitely quite tail happy on this actual setup for these cars. So you're seeing a lot of people losing it, a lot of sideways out there as well, and that's kind of what the 86 is all about. It's finding the limit because it is a very fine line between going fast and going sideways.
Absolutely. Let's check out a replay here. This was for the lead, and we have a new leader, actually, that we unfortunately missed. But here's how Cameron Edwards got it done. Defensive line from Jack Gray coming into turn 9, but Edwards just using the momentum of the slipstream to steam on by. Or did he? Yeah, actually he did. There was a little bit of a yield there at the end of the straight there from Jack Gray, and I think that's just some good racecraft there, Daniel. Gray allowing Cam by, but then Van Ree going for a interesting run there. So Newens going through there on Van Ree, but then the position swapped back. Some good racecraft being seen here in this race, Dan.
Yeah, there really has been. I'm quite surprised at what we're seeing from the guys at the moment. Like the standard of driving is very good.
Edwards is off. Edwards has gone off at turn 4. Sorry to interrupt.
That's
no, that's not turn 4. That's Sandown road, and that is the lead change there, Hayden. That is huge. Edwards carrying a bit of damage to the right front.
He pushed really hard. Like, those guys were going toe for toe on the fastest laps for a while, and he did well to bring back from nearly a second gap to take that lead. But he's thrown it all away there. Not sure exactly what's happened to Cam Edwards.
Yeah, that might require a little bit more dissection there. I've just checked it out on my end. You'll see it on the replay here. He just went too deep at Dandenong Road. It looked like there's a bit of oversteer here, and he tried to correct it and ended up overcorrecting it. Went straight on through the sand into the tyre barriers. That is that's going to really sting, isn't it, Hayden? Especially for the lead of the race.
It was a hard fought lead too, so that will sting. He was well positioned to get a great result here, and he still is. Those guys were well clear of everybody else. Definitely the pick of the litter so far in the DBS that we've got going on here, the Shannons Insurance NTESERIES Development Series. As we look at some 3-wide action here, Dan, what you making of this?
Mate, Michael Gore is sticking the car out wide. He's trying to get that move done, but Tyrone Anderson has been in the middle of a lot of stuff tonight. Great racing early on. Had that little bit of an issue and a rotation down off the exit of 4, but since coming back out, he's been in some fantastic battles. This little scrap between Zeitz himself and Michael Gore is one that we'll have to keep a weather eye on, because just ahead of these guys too, you've got McMillan, and we can't say it's the battle of the mustaches this season, Hayden, because Michael's got rid of the filthy moat and getting the beard growing.
You hate to see it, don't you? He had a fantastic mo, and the beard doesn't hurt though. You know, it's still carrying on the tradition. It's still a bit of filthy facial hair for us to talk about, Dan.
Oh dear. And Tyrone having a little sippy sip of a good brew down the straight. He's got that damage, but he's still trying to fight for these positions. He didn't pit to fix that damage. He stayed out, and I think it really shows that, you know, he's at the back of the field at the moment, but despite being walking wounded, goodness, yeah, there you go. That's on the racing line, but he avoids damage. I think it's just a case of having a laugh now, because he'll try and see how far he can take this thing with that damage to the front there. Oh dear. Well, I guess now with 6.5 minutes to go, Dan, there's not much that anyone can do to overcome Jack Gray, but it's all about these positions further back. Bradley Minshall is having to keep an eye in his mirrors here, because Justin Cotter is starting to catch up to him.
Yeah, these two are looking pretty good as far as the lap times go. There's not much in them at all, but Cotter did have a little bit of an awkward lap last time by just shy of 2 seconds slower over Minshall there, but the racing between both of them has been quite good. Minshall up 2 spots over the course of the run, thanks to those incidents that we saw, but Cotter's also gained 3 positions as well, so both these guys moving up forwardly, and it'll be a nice little haul of points if they can hold on to where they're at the moment.
Yeah, certainly shall be. It's looking like a pretty close battle between them, though, and as they came across the start-finish line, it seems they were more or less equal on lap times, Hayden, so this is going to be one tight battle towards the end.
Yeah, this one's definitely shaping up to be a pretty tidy battle. And then when you look at the live timing at best laps at some of the guys that aren't necessarily near the pointy end but have set some blistering lap times, it sort of tells the tale of racing a bit. You know, it's definitely a case of you can be as fast as you like, you can put in as much practice as you like, but sometimes the dice just don't sort of roll your way.
Yeah, it's been all about rolling the dice, and I suppose half rolling the car as well through the corners. With how many incidents we've seen of drivers just losing the rear end in these cold track conditions. Cam Edwards still holding on to second place, and I got to say, he is holding on to that position very nicely. He's still putting in competitive lap times. His last lap, Dan, was a 1 minute 22.88. Remember, he's carrying damage. Jack Gray, meanwhile, 123.3. So Edwards is trying desperately to get this lead back.
Yeah, considering that little bit of damage that Edwards picked up, he's only 4/10 of a second off his fastest lap of the race so far. So that damage didn't really impact him too much. It was more so the time lost from going off circuit. But Jack Gray's probably in that little bit of conservation mode at the moment with 4.5 minutes left on the clock. The tricky part is, though, how much do you decide you want to back off and try and coast at home to the end? Because we've seen guys that'll do it, and it's that little bit of a lapse of concentration, as you can see the gap between first and second, that may spell danger for Edwards there.
And it's often harder to drive at 9/10 than it is to actually drive at 10. So when you've got that little bit of a breather and you're conscious to try to take it easy to actually look after yourself, sometimes you can take yourself out of the game a bit, and you can cause that lapse of concentration, that mistake. You know, with 4.4 seconds in it and 4 minutes left of racing, Cam Edwards would still feel like he's in a shot here. He's definitely driving like it. You know, he's still setting 122.6s. Which is considerably faster than what Jack Gray did in the last lap. So he still thinks he's in this, and he's still having a good crack too.
Yeah, I'm reminded of Ayrton Senna. Was it the 88 or 89 Monaco Grand Prix when he was out in the lead and the team told him to back off because he had such a big lead, and by backing off, his concentration lapsed and he ended up crowd. That's what a lot of drivers have to be very careful of out here when they are dealing with those kinds of gaps. Meanwhile, very close battle here between Latta and Zeitz. This is for 8th position, and no move happening there for the time being. They do have Dylan Zeitz just in front of them, but he promptly jumps out of the way, allows them to continue their battle. Very good to see that there's been really prompt obeying of blue flags here, which really sets up things up well for the season. That was a good line through the final corner there for James Zeitz, and he has got the run now on Michael Latta down the start-finish straight. Just 2.5 minutes and change left to go in this session, and the slipstream is on. To the inside then goes Zeitz. Latta is going to have to try and defend this. Will he yield on entry and go for the crisscross? Let's find out. They're actually pretty equal in the braking zone, but Latta ends up yielding there in turn 1 and gives Zeitz a good bit of breathing room, Dan.
Yeah, it was a nice little bit of driving from both of those guys there with the battles that we're seeing between them, the awareness of who's around, and we saw Zeitz being that little bit quicker. Latta didn't really make it too easy for him, but he made it just easy enough to let that move go through and no harm fell to either.
Big incidents happen. We're just hearing from Director Jay Kennedy. Oh dear, looks like Brad Minchell falling down the order there to 7th place. What's gone wrong here for Mr. Minchell? Coming down the back straight, coming up the hill. Oh dear, this doesn't look good. Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I hate to see it.
Oh, yeah, and unfortunately, looks like, was that, yeah, that was Cott running into him as well. Both cars big damage, and on live pictures, it looks like Shane Newens is on his roof, coming into, I think that's Dandenong Road. Yeah, it is. Oh dear, what on earth has gone on there? Looks like he's just lost it on his own and flipped after hitting the wall. Looks like race control have given him permission to tow back to the pits potentially, so no one else will be involved in that, but seems a couple of drivers had to take avoiding action and ended up slipping wide. Some big damage there. Let's have a look at what happened to him here. On the way into the corner, lost the rear again here, Hayden. That is that is suboptimal at best.
It's been the tail of the tape, and we see another one in the background.
Lordy.
Oh man, the 86. Like I said, they're a tail happy, snappy sort of platform. You know, they tell you what they're going to do a long time before they do it, but you know, it can definitely catch you off guard and get you in a lot of trouble.
Well, white flag being waved by Barney, the affectionate name for the iRacing flag man. And the cap is really coming down here between Jack Gray and Cam Edwards. Is there potential here for Edwards to try and take the lead in the last couple of corners? It'll all depend on whether Jack Gray can hold it together and keep up the pace here. Comparing lap times, goodness me, Cam Edwards was 1.1 seconds faster on the previous lap. The gap is 2.2 at the moment. Around 2.1, 2.2. I don't think it's going to be able to be made up. Car stopped on the side of the track. That's Michael Power, who's had an issue. But he's in a safe spot there on the opposite side of the straight. Will they be able to make it to the finish cleanly? Our leaders here. It's been a really good drive from Jack Gray. He's one of the only cars out there with next to no damage on the machine. But Cam Edwards is driving as hard as he ever has to try and take this back. Just a couple more corners to go. And it doesn't look like it's going to happen. He's going to have to depend on a mistake from Jack Gray in these last couple of corners, but it doesn't come. So the first winner of the Shannons NTESeries Development Cup is going to be Mr. Jack Gray in Car 7. Beautiful drive there, and Cam Edwards comes home a very strong second despite that incident for him. Ross Thalen is going to hold on for third place. Well, Dan, that is a really awesome podium that we've seen there, and some really good racing that's still going on back in the pack.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hats off to the top three. They did a fantastic job to put up the battle that they did. We've got the two teammates here, John Van Ree and James Zeitz, just coming across the line. A bit of formation flying there for fourth and fifth position. But I think, you know, the story of the night, the racing was hard and fast. The tricky thing is going to be, as you guys both alluded to early on, is getting a feel for the back end of these cars and how it rotates through. We saw quite a few issues from that early on, and we saw that pretty much all the way down through the race. And the big one down at Dandenong Road took quite a few drivers by surprise there.
Yeah, for a small field, it certainly was a pretty chaotic race there, Hayden. I think this bodes well, depending on what you're looking for the main game coming up soon.
Yeah, we definitely got some pretty entertaining action coming up here in Supercars that we're going to be racing in very shortly, but definitely worth running through our development series here. A lot of the guys, and when you look at the lap times as well, there's a lot of guys there putting a bit of a stamp and a bit of a warning message out as well. You look at James Zeitz and you look at Matt McMillan, and you also look at Bradley Minchell, all setting really fast laps that race. So they'll be great to watch next week or next time we're out here on the Shannons NTESeries development series as well.
Yeah, that's your top 10 there, with the top 9 finishing on the lead lap. McMillan, the first driver, a lap down. He's joined by Mitchell and Newens, with Dylan Seitz 3 laps down and Michael Power 4 laps down, with a lot of damage there. But it seems to me that most of our 14 cars made it to the finish. Really awesome to see. Now we can take a little bit of a breather and a moment here to go through our fantastic series of sponsors here for the Shannons Insurance NTESeries. Why don't you lead us off here, Hayden? Because, well, we have to thank, of course, the title sponsor first and foremost.
100. Yeah, 100% there. You got to mention Shannons Insurance here. So they're really long-term supporters of the NTESeries, and they've been our naming rights sponsor since we actually started it. So Shannons is, of course, Australia's leading insurance provider for motoring enthusiasts, and Shannons Auctions is Australia's leading auction house for veteran, vintage, classic, sporting and modified vehicles, as well as classic bikes, memorabilia and number plates. And there was a big auction not too long ago. You're starting to see some really interesting cars coming through the Shannons Auctions, JDM cars and stuff like that. So definitely check the auctions out. And they've recently actually launched a new online quoting feature. So previously you'd have to speak to somebody on the phone to get a quote with Shannons. No longer the case. So you can go online and do a very quick, easy quote. And you can go on there and request a quote for your car, your bike or your home insurance as well. So definitely check out shannons.com.au or call them up on 13 46 46.
Of course, we've also got Pool Guys Adelaide on the sponsor roster too. Part owned by series entrant Josh Drage in the 888 machine. They're a proud South Australian family-owned business. They have extensive knowledge and experience in maintaining, upgrading and looking after all of your pool needs. They are also long-term supporters of NTESeries. For all of those pool servicing and equipment needs you have, head over to www.poolguysadelaide.com.au. They offer honest advice. They've got a great wealth of knowledge within the pool industry. They offer high quality customer service and ensure that you understand the importance of pool care as well as maintaining your pool and equipment.
Next up, we have West Oz Roof Restorations. This company is owned by series entrant Daniel Norris in the 27. West Oz Roofing Restorations aim to provide you with an easy and hassle-free roof restoration and give you the best possible job with the least disruptions. Most jobs can be completed within 2 to 3 days, weather permitting. And we don't have any other jobs to go at the same time. The guys have been around for quite a while and offer a full 10-year guarantee on the restorations. West Oz Roofing Restorations is structured with a lot of different roofing companies, and they don't use salesmen to try and sell you on the job. It is the owners, such as Daniel Norris, who will guide you through the process from start to finish. One of the other two parties in the business is a registered painter, and he'll be able to also offer you that service. We'll apply 3 coats of paint to the roof and primer and ready to go. For more information, check out westozroofing.com.au.
Our next sponsor on the list here is, of course, Hire Power NT, which is in the middle of a construction project in the Northern Territory. And if you need plant hire equipment quick, you've definitely got to have a chat to the professional team at Hire Power NT, who can supply all your Darwin and Catherine plant rental hire equipment needs, with on-site delivery also available. So they're based up in Yarrawonga in Darwin and Catherine. They're a local family-owned and operated business with more than 30 years in the industry. So they've got a vast range of machinery and equipment that can accommodate your domestic, commercial and industrial needs. Hire Power NT only supply equipment and machinery in superior condition from 3 months to 1 year old. So you have a quality assurance that it will perform optimally, even under a really heavy workload. From specialised hydraulic equipment and general tools through to heavy machinery, fully mine spec stuff, Hire Power NT can service all of your plant hire equipment requirements. And for all your Darwin hire equipment requirements, please visit Hire Power NT on www.hirepowernt.com.
Indeed. We've also got on board the Breaking Late podcast, a motorsport-focused podcast, primarily focusing on the Repco Supercar Championship and Formula One, as well as many other series worldwide. You can join your hosts while they discuss the previous round, as well as the current news, and preview the next round in the championship. Breaking Late's going to be running a special NTESeries podcast. They're going to be chatting to the winners and wrapping up each of the rounds for the 2023 Shannons Insurance NTESeries. Stay up to date with Breaking Late, run by Michael Gore and Mitchell Strelecki on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
Next up, we have VRS Virtual Racing School. Virtual Racing School has supplied all of the setups for the 2023 series and are offering the winners of our development series a VRS coaching pack. VRS have a team of dedicated racing coaches which can help you to achieve your best. For more information, check out Virtual Racing School at www.virtualracingschool.com.
Next up is another one of our entrants, actually, here in Ross Allen. We just seen him come third in that 86 race there with Turn-In Race Apparel. So they're actually the suppliers for the series merchandise. If you're interested in any merchandise for the Shannons NTESeries, you can actually order your very own from www.nteseries.com.au/merch. And Turn-In actually offer fully custom clothing for your race team or your club with no minimum order and fast turnaround time. So visit https turnin.store for all your merchandise needs. And of course, again, that is run by Ross Thalen, who came third in that last race.
Indeed. Another series entrant, Tim Nicol, runs Tim Nicol Photography, one of Darwin and the Northern Territory's leading event, corporate, sport and motorsport photography companies. TNP also specialises in weddings, however only a select few every year, so make sure to get in touch with him. Tim will ensure his clients receive the personal service they deserve for their special day or event. One of the official series photographers for the NTE series, so you can catch some series screenshots there thanks to Mr. Nicol. Visit www.timnicolphotography.com.au for your NT photography needs.
And our final mention tonight is Prestige Cinematography. Prestige Cinematography are offering the official development series Sim Photos. Prestige Cinematography capture high quality photographs from the virtual world, racing shots and livery reveals. Prestige Cinematography can do it all for your sim photography needs. Please visit Prestige Cinematography on Facebook, and thank you to Brad Mitchell for helping out with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic roster of sponsors here in the Shannons NTE series for 2023. We can check out the schedule as well for upcoming rounds. We've only got 6 rounds of the series, but that's still plenty of racing over the course of the first half of this year. Of course, we're at Sandown for the first round, but then we go to Daytona, the high banks and the hairpins of the infield, Zandvoort, Montreal, Bathurst, and the Chicago Street Circuit to round out this season. Hayden, this is a fantastic schedule, I have to say, and the Chicago Street Circuit, pretty underrated as far as tracks go. It was actually designed by iRacing for NASCAR in the real world, and NASCAR actually going to the Chicago Street Circuit thanks to the work iRacing has done. Can't wait to see how these V8 touring cars go around there.
Yeah, you've got a bit of a wish list of dream tracks that we'd all love to see V8s run out in real life there. Chicago is going to be a really exciting place to see develop, but definitely Daytona catches my eye because that's actually going to be a night round special. So we're going to see these cars under lights out there, and that's only a couple of weeks away at our very next event.
Yeah, indeed. We'll be running here roughly every 3 weeks, so make sure to mark those dates into your calendar. We're going to step aside very briefly here on SimSpeed TV, but don't go away. We'll be back very shortly with the main game, the Shannons NTE Series Round 1 at Sandown. Get ready for 40 minutes of high-octane V8 touring car action here on SimSpeed TV.
World of Outlaws Dirt Racing is available now. Download your copy today.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
You're watching the Shannons NTE series for 2023 here on SimSpeed TV. Reese Gardner, Daniel Leet, and Hayden McMahon with you in the commentary box. Jay Kennedy on production. We are getting into the main game here for the first round at Sandown International Motor Raceway. Plenty of drivers here in this session. We have got a good 40 plus V8 touring cars out there here at Sandown International Motor Raceway. Blake Warboys, the series runner-up from last season, on a qualifying lap at the moment. He's going to be one of the guys who's potentially going to be starting from the front here, Dan, if he can get a lap down. But we've got a few drivers who have fallen afoul of the regulations and are going to be starting from the back of the grid.
Yeah, hard to believe. First race off the season, and we've already got a few guys that have been slapped across the wrist with the naughty stick. Starting off the back of the grid tonight, we'll have James Zeitz, Mark Peck, Craig Spencer, Jack Wittes, Tyrone Anderson, who we saw in the last event, and Alex Zenny. Unfortunately, those drivers didn't complete their compulsory practice laps prior to the start of the season, and that's going to see them starting with a lot of work to do for 40 minutes of driving around Sandown tonight.
And that is a new rule for us here with this 15 laps of compulsory practice. So I think that might just be trying to make sure everybody has their eye in prior to the race. It's a good rule to implement, but it's actually bit some of our most competitive guys. Jack Wittes was right at the pointy end last season, so he's going to really have to work, and I wouldn't want to see him coming up behind me, that's for sure.
Yeah, of course. Good thing we are ensconced up here in the virtual commentary box where it's nice and safe and cozy. Kevin Norman on a lap now, getting things started. Currently in 24th place, 108.86 is his quickest lap time so far. And that lap that we saw Blake Warboys doing when we came back was actually the provisional pole position lap, which is awesome to see. Only 1.5 tenths ahead of David Coleman as we see another one of the WKMP cars, this time a Commodore, getting a little bit off kilter through the opening chicane. That's John Van Ree, who we saw already having a pretty interesting run in the Development Cup. One of the drivers running a triple screen setup here, so I've got a good view of everything around him. Let's see how he goes towards the end of the session. Lap times continuing to tick in here. We've had Justin McLean set a personal best so far in P4, 107.173. And the times are actually looking pretty close here, Daniel. Check out that field spread, particularly in the top three, and then from fourth on back. This is competitive.
Yeah, it certainly will be. I mean, if we go all the way down to 28th position at the moment, we're just shy of 2 seconds or 3 seconds gap covering 28 drivers out on circuit. And when we consider it's only going to be a lap time, a 1 minute lap around here, come race time, the guys are going to be in traffic as if it was a 24-hour race at Daytona. So it'll be critical to get that position up the grid as far as possible. We have a look here, Ryan Robson just getting ready to set himself up with a lap. But the top 10, as you say, all inside that 107 range, which is very, very competitive so far.
And it's also interesting. We see some of these guys fresh out the Development Series cars straight into the Commodore. So and the Mustangs, of course. So it's going to be interesting to see how they adjust to a completely different style of race car. Literally 5 minutes ago, they were out racing 86s.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really difficult transition here to jump from, well, I mean, the cars are both front engine and rear wheel drive, but these V8s, obviously, they have a lot more weight, a lot more heft to carry around, but also a ton more power to compensate for that, and a locked differential. There's equal amounts of power going through both rear wheels here, so that really does a lot to change the driving characteristics, make these cars very difficult to wheel around a track. You've got to be very careful feeding on the power nice and smooth, and you also got to be careful of the brakes locking up. There is no ABS, no traction control on these things, though there is a sequential transmission, Daniel, which definitely makes things a little bit easier.
Well, it certainly does. I mean, could you imagine a supercar with flappy paddles? I couldn't. But the sequential is great around here, and we're going to see these guys plucking the gears all the way up down the back straight and right down the front straight as we watch Michael Ladder get across the line. I don't think that was much of an improvement for him there, but that car looking very, very good, and he's going to get underway for a lap now.
Yeah, that he is. Let's see how he goes then on this lap then through the opening chicane goes car 60, and then hard on the brakes once again for turn 4, one of the slowest corners on the track, and it's easy to get on the power nice and tight out of there and get a good run onto the back straight. Let's see how he does then on his way into turn 9. Michael Ladder still yet to set a time in this session, as we pointed out, and well, it's looking like he's having a bit of trouble getting that thing through turn 9 as quickly as he'd like, and it seems that he's not quite using all of the track either. So this isn't going to be the quickest lap time, but I think Hayden is going to be a pretty good banker to start things off.
It looks pretty tidy, and then with 5 minutes left in the qualifying, he's still probably getting his eye in a little bit as well, just making sure he's got himself right for the race, got his car right for the race, got his lines all figured out, and really starting to think about how is he going to do this, because there is a bit of strategy involved in what is going to be, correct me if I'm wrong, a 40-minute race here, Dan.
Yeah, 40 minutes around here is, just touch under probably 40 laps here, and qualifying's a little bit different for this season as well, where last time we saw 15 minutes with all the drivers out on circuit. It's 3 laps, 3 hot laps to get your best time run and done, which is nice. The guys will have a little bit of clear track to be able to do that, no impedance along the way, but you've got to have the mindset, the eyes forward, and just eke out as much time as possible in all these cars.
Well, that is going to be the more or less end of quite a few runs here, as we still have a few drivers out on track. This is the format that we've got started for round 1, and every round is going to be running this format here with 40 minutes in the race, but only 35 litres of starting fuel allowed. There isn't a fuel tank restriction, but they are locked in to 35 litres out of the 111 total of starting. They can put in as much as they like at the pit stop, but it seems, Hayden, that they're only going to be able to make it about 12 laps into the race, given those fuel numbers, before they have to come in for a stop.
And we've seen a lot of really interesting stuff with strategy. Me and Dan watched a lot of it play out last season, with the early pits and the pushing it right to the limit pits as well, and how all that plays out is going to be a big factor. We saw people win races and finish well in the championship purely because they've thought about their strategy and they played a bit of a smart game.
Yeah, it's going to be all about strategy here. As we check out the Zoom wall, plenty of drivers here on the Zoom feed, and we'll be checking in with all of them at some point, I would hope, because, wow, it's great to see the amount of representation in this series. And Dan, what I really love about sim racing is the diversity it can bring in terms of age and background. Some of these guys are as young as 20, or some of them may even be in their late teens, and we've got drivers in their 40s, sometimes 50s, competing in sim racing as well at this level, which is really awesome to see. It doesn't matter where you come from, how old you are, what your background is, you can go racing, and that's the beauty of this sport we have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it brings a lot of variety in the mix, and for some of the young guys, they can pick up a few things on some of the experience that the older guys might have, even though they're a little bit faster. But it's one of those things. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're, as you say, 3 years old, 50 years old, 99 years old. If you love motor racing, you love motor racing, and it doesn't discriminate from any of that point at all. So it's great to see all the guys out here tonight, and we've got some very seasoned veterans in the competition, and hopefully start of some young guys coming through, and we'll look to see their progress as the season progresses.
Indeed, we will.
A lot of smiling faces there, a lot of people keen to go racing. One of my favourite things about the ESeries is the accessibility of it. So not all of us can afford to go build a real, go out there and compete in grassroots motorsports and then buy a Toyota 86 Racing Series vehicle. But for a couple of $1,000s and with a decent computer, you can come out here, you can meet a lot of cool people, get some mates and have a lot of fun and genuinely develop your racecraft in a safe and great environment.
Yeah, a lot of support in the sim racing community as well. There's a good amount of mateship going around in this still reasonable, but developing quite quickly esport. I think the COVID-19 pandemic, obviously quite a horrible thing to happen worldwide, but if we're being honest, it was very good for sim racing. A lot of people getting into online motorsport thanks to the lockdowns, thanks to the inability for a lot of real series to go racing, and a lot of them moved to virtual championships for the first part of 2020 to make up for that lack of real life action.
And in a lot of cases, it really helped the sport. You know, we saw the Supercars ESeries, and we got to see those drivers' personalities coming out of it. We got to see them in a whole different light. So it's been good for this real sport, and it's been great for the ESeries, and it's been great for getting people out there and interested in motorsport on an accessible level as well.
Yeah, I think accessibility is the big term there. Just being able to jump straight in to be able to see on a more personal level how motorsport really is. That's the end of the qualifying session then, and it looks like 34 of our 41 drivers in the session have set times, and we'll be able to go through the grid here. I'll take the top 12, Dan will take the next 12, and then we'll leave it to Hayden to get another 12 cars done here. It's going to be led by Blake Warboys, who took pole by 1.5 tenths from David Coleman. Connor Nixon starts alongside Justin McLean, the two West Aussies sharing the second row with Brenton Nitschke and Tiago Massadou starting 5th and 6th. In 7th place is Tim Nicol, who's starting alongside Josh Drake in car 888. Michael Stewart and Dean Powell will round out the top 10. And then, Dan, we got Anthony Jewell and Ash Barella rounding out the top 12. How do positions 13 to 24 look?
Yeah, coming out of 13th tonight, we'll have Luke Holland alongside Ryan Robson, Chris Blanchard and Jake Burgess, who is organiser down there in 15th and 16th positions. Chris Novecki and Andrew Hoffman down in 17th and 18th respectively. Cameron Edwards and Michael Freeman starting in 19th and 20th. Jake Gray and Neil Woodburn there in 21st and 22nd. And 23rd tonight, we'll see Brad Minchell and Kevin Norman out of the 24th position.
Indeed. Hayden, let's see how this looks.
And going on from there, we've got John Van Ree and Ross Fallon, and Dylan Seitz and Shane Ewan. So a few familiar names from that development series race there. Tyrone Anderson, James Zeitz in 30th on the grid. Then Andrew Teixeira, Justin Cotter, Michael Gore, Michael Latta, Alec Zani and Nathan Brown there in 36th as well. Finishing off the grid, we've got Craig Spencer, Mick Power, Matthew McMillan, and Scotty Van Loon and Mark Peck will be starting behind the safety car.
Yeah, among those final drivers were the ones who got those penalties. We're rising in the rev range, getting ready for the start of the first round of the Shannons NTE Series. We are away. It's an equal start from our front row, but a little bit of bogging down from Connor Nixon and also from Tiago Massadou. The Racecraft Simulations cars not having a great start there, but to the lead goes David Coleman. Took the lead around Blake Warboys around the outside, and drama at the back. The track looks almost blocked there. Majority of the field manages to avoid that carnage at the back. Now, who was involved in that? It was Ash Barella and Ryan Robson, the drivers who started out at 12th and 14th. And we've also got pit lane starting there for Alexander, Craig Spencer and Mark Peck, and the field rounded out by James Zeitz at the moment. But it is on for the lead here, Hayden. Have a look at this. Blake Warboys pole position, but he's staring at the back of the Commodore.
Yeah, not where you want to be when you start on pole, but when you start side by side, it is always a drag race at the start line, and the best start gets it. There's still a fair bit of argy-bargy stuff happening a bit further down in the grid here as well.
Yeah, that it is. Lap 1 complete for leaders. Meanwhile, have a look at the long stream of cars. This is a lot of cars here for Sandown, but it is David Coleman who leads across the line by 0.294 of a second, and a big lockup on the way into turn 1, Dan. It looks like this lead might not be there for long if Blake Warboys has anything to say about it.
Warboys really applying the pressure on the back of Coleman there, gets a nice run through 2-3, out onto 4 there. He's right under the rear wing, and he'll be looking for every opportunity to get up and go there. Justin McLean just a little bit further back, and we've got Nixon not that far behind either. So the top 4-5 just starting to spread themselves out a little bit.
Yeah, it's a good recovery from Connor Nixon to hold on to what is fourth place. Looked to me like he would get swamped initially, but he's managed to stay there. And this lead is really getting on now. That was a big oversteer moment for David Coleman. Here he comes. Does Blake Warboys round the outside of the final corner? Coleman has to give him room there on the run into the final turn, and Blake Warboys gets back into the lead. That was masterful there, Hayden. Very good opportunistic driving by the 63.
It was only a little mistake, but he made it into a really big moment. So that was really, really smart driving from Warboys, but this isn't actually over here. Coleman's going to have another crack.
Yeah, he definitely had a slight look, didn't he? Warboys had to go defensive, but he holds on to it through the exit of turn 1, and this top 4 is really starting to compress. I saw a snickle issue for Justin McLean. His car disappeared for a couple of seconds, but he is back. He'll be hoping that he can hold on to that in the black, white, and pink machine there. Part of the 95 Sim Sports crew, I believe. Meanwhile, Connor Nixon continuing to pressure the back of him. Look at the gap that Warboys has already. This is looking very interesting. It's definitely going to be in the favour of the 63, but of course, Dan, we have to think about pit stops.
Well, that's the next big thing to consider. We know the guys are going to be reasonably lowish on fuel. We talked about that a little bit earlier. They've got to keep a minimum fuel load in these cars, but it'll be the time of how early do you want to go? Do you want to go with a teammate or a partner so that you've got a bit of an opportunity to use the draft later on? As we have a look there, that's the car of Jack Gray's gone around down at turn 9, and it looks like he'll be able to get that one back out of the kitty litter.
Yeah. Development winner there, not having a good lap. He was in 13th when that unfortunately happened to him. Here's a replay of the start. We're going to keep an eye on Anthony Jewell here. Oh, goodness, that's what started everything. Commodore going up the inside of a Mustang, and that just created a chain reaction through the rest of the field, Hayden. That seems par for the course for lap 1 here.
Yeah, that's lap 1 turn 1 of iRacing in a nutshell right there, but it actually could have gone a lot worse. That camera was a great way to demonstrate how well most people did in avoiding the drama there. I think everybody on lap 1 of a race knows to be cautious, knows that things are probably going to happen, and knows to be ready to dodge and dive around it.
Have a look at this battle for third. Meanwhile, Connor Nixon is piling the pressure on Justin McLean, and it looks like McLean, he almost had a chance to get by, did Nixon, but slight oversteer on the exit of the final proper corner here at Sandown. He's also having to deal with McLean suffering those technical issues. He's disappearing for half a second at a time. There he is again. That does not fill you with confidence when you're racing behind someone, Daniel.
No, that is the one thing that any driver in this field would not want to see. It's the little thing that you don't need that's going to put you off and potentially lead to an issue along the way. Bretton Nishiki now just starting to bring his Ford Mustang up into contention here. Didn't gain anything off the start, but holding on to 5th spot and closing down that gap nicely to Connor Nixon just ahead of him.
And I just want to take a second to look at the best lap time so far. So from 2nd through to 8th, there is just 0.2 between them. And not even, it's 0.02 between them on their fastest laps.
Oh dear. That's a problem there for Tyrone Anderson. We'll come back to that point in a sec, but car 47 not having a good time there. Seems that Anderson having some issues in the Development Cup has transferred over to NTESERIES proper, and that Mustang is looking decidedly broken at the moment. Damage to the front and rear, and we've also got, oh no, Matthew McMillan out in the weeds at Dandenong Road. A lot of drivers having issues here in the opening laps, Hayden.
Yeah, and it's a lot of the guys we've seen in the development series. So I think it is worth pointing out that when you've been racing in a car for, including qualifying for 86, they're out there for quite a while. They become quite used to how that car reacts. And these are some of the guys that we've seen be the quickest out there. Jack Gray, the winner of that race, having dramas in his supercar. And a lot of these boys are just having trouble adapting to that transition. It might be something we'll see play out even further as the series develops.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we'll be seeing This battle for third is still not letting up here in the opening stages. Coming up to the start of lap 7 here, the fuel tank will be almost running dry by this point. They'll only have about 6 laps left in the tank here. The question is here, Dan, do you run the tank out and pit on lap 12, or do you decide to go early? Well, I think they're not thinking about that at the moment in this battle for third, are they? Look at how hard they are fighting. This is crazy.
Yeah, really not thinking about the opportunities of when you want to come in. I'm just having a look at the track map info at the moment. I don't think it matters where you come in on. You're coming back out in the traffic as well. So it's a tough one to go. We saw it work last season where some of the guys that went early were able to make that run and work on some of the safety cars later on. But it's a tricky one. I think at this point, you've got to run it as far as possible.
Seeing that there's a... Sorry, a black flag coming in for Luke Holden. My apologies.
Yeah, he's got it done. That was a good move there, actually. He really ran out hard. He really pushed him hard, and it was quite a clean move. Bit of lap traffic, nearly causing some dramas there, but that was a great move actually.
Yeah, fantastic move there for third place now for Connor Nixon, as Dylan Sykes has some issues there off turn 4. Have a look at the gap that Nixon has gotten over McLean already. That really says something about the pace that he has, and look at how much of a gap there is to the leaders now. Coleman and Warboys, they're still pushing each other very hard. They're not battling out and out, but they're staying close to each other, keeping each other honest. Connor Nixon now has a lot of clear air ahead of them that it seems Justin McLean was blocking him from.
Yeah, I think with Nixon being able to get around and gain that little bit of an advantage, he's already picked up 1.1 seconds. So he was certainly being held up just a fraction there, but now it's time for him to really knuckle down and get on with business and move forward. You see a few more guys out in the kitty litter there at Danny Dong Road. I don't know if anyone in the driver's briefing told them they're going to need a bucket and a spade for today, but it's a lot of guys having to play out there.
Here they come then down the run to Dandenong Road. These battles further back in the pack. Christopher Blanchard and Tiago Massadou fighting as there are 2 cars off again in the gravel trap. It looks like Jake Burgess just getting it going again, and Matthew McMillan going wide in the background. The racetrack nice and safely, but through the last couple of corners they come and across the start finish line to begin yet another lap here, and this is quite the fight, with Blanchard chasing down Cam Edwards for 11th place. Tiago Massadou continuing to pressure them both. That's the view that we've got of Blanchard here. He is one of the drivers running the fully real setup with a sequential stick, and I've got to say, it's quite difficult at the best at times, isn't it, Hayden? Trying to drive as hard as you can. Well, having to take your hand off the wheel to shift. I mean, it used to be the way that it was done, just full stop, but in this day and age, it's a bit of a rarity.
Yeah, he's really going for the realism and the immersion there again. So a lot of these guys would run the paddles. It's a lot quicker and a lot easier. You don't have to take your hands off the wheel. You can maintain full control, 2 hands on the job. But I'm actually a big fan of seeing people opt for what the real cars use, opt for using the proper sequential stick there, which is Christopher Blanchard. And as you get used to it, I don't think it's a massive hindrance. And I'm just glad to see him really adopting what these cars are all about, because it is a core part of a supercar that the sequential gearbox is part of the mix, like you alluded to earlier there, Dan.
Oh, we've got an issue down the turn 9 there. It looks like Ash Burrell has just backed it into the wall.
Yeah.
And fortunately, actually, we've got a few more cars that have gone around as an incident in that one, but he looks like he's got away relatively unscathed.
Luke Holland, who recently had a penalty applied to him getting going, but Andrew Teixeira of New South Wales unfortunately stuck on the side of the track, and this is a consequence of this many incidents happening in the opening laps, as Justin Cotter is very slow. Something's gone very wrong for him. It's so difficult to find a gap, and a lot of drivers having to take avoiding action there. So many incidents in these opening laps. It has spread the field out. There isn't a single piece of racetrack that doesn't have a car on it, and we're only, 12 minutes in, if that?
And We still haven't seen the first person draw their gun in regards to a pit stop either. So yeah, like you said, Dan, with a track this packed and the spread this wide, you're not going to get clean air. You can pit whenever you like. You're not actually going to get an empty piece of racetrack.
We do have two cars that have only just come out of the pit. Dylan Sykes down in 35th at the moment, and Michael Latter down in 37th. We've got a replay coming up. Something has gone majorly wrong here, and it's another view of what happened to Ash Barella and Luke Holland. So side by side into turn 9. That's always a recipe for disaster. And they make contact on the way through. Holland tries to consolidate it and stake out his claim, ends up turning Barella around, and the both of them get out into the sandpit. Dan, that's a shame to see.
Yeah, looks like Holland got the better exit there. As we have a look back here at Michael Stewart, it's just a similar thing. This will be actually the rejoin where we saw him coming back out there, and he had to shoot the gap. There was not a lot left with it when we saw it at racing pace, but looking on board there, not as scary as we first thought. But there's that little incident between with Ash Barella there reminded me a lot of what we saw with I think it might have been Tim Blanchard and Jonathan Webb many years ago at the back end of Dandenong Road.
Yeah, that's definitely an action corner on the circuit at the best of times. One of the WKMP Mustangs making their way past Commodore there for a position further back in the field. Down the straight to turn 9 we come. This is the battle for 6th place. Josh Drake, Anthony Jewell, Tim Nicol, and Scotty Van Loon. And it looks like Van Loon actually a lap down at the moment, but he is with his teammate there. Try and provide some kind of support as Nicol chases down 2 cars ahead of him. There goes Anthony Jewell into the lane. We have yet another taker here onto the pits, and actually pit lane is looking quite lively at the moment. We've got 4 other cars in there. Nixon and McQueen have both come in, as well as Brenton Nitschke. Michael Stewart is going to come in behind them. So there is the big deal for a lot of these drivers, and crucially here, Hayden, our leaders have stayed out of the pits for an extra lap. Let's see how that works out for them.
Yeah, they've decided to push it to pretty much the limit there, Warboys and also David Coleman. And it's partly a strategy thing, I suppose. It is trying to get clean air, but it's also trying to stay competitive with one another as well. Coleman probably doesn't want to, he's not going to see an advantage of going early, so he just wants to follow what the fast guy's doing and hopefully be in touch with him when this 25 minutes that we've got left to go is over.
Daniel, it is a difficult pit entry here at Sandown. We haven't talked about it yet, but if you're trying to pit in a pack, it's really difficult because you've got to start braking on the racing line on the exit of the last turn. That's interesting to see that David Coleman has stayed out for another lap here. He's actually going to make it 14 laps.
Yeah, he's doing very well to continue pushing on. We've seen Warboys, Nichols, Josh Drage, Deskovich and Edwards all drop into the lane there. And as you alluded to, I mean, we didn't touch base with the run into the pit lane here, but it is incredibly tricky. You're trying to get the power down for the guys that are preceding. And here as we watch a couple of guys further down getting in there.
Way past, that was 70-something. It looks like 73. That's Shane Newens, who was a lap down. But that really demonstrates, doesn't it, Dan? Also, pit exit is something you've got to watch out for because, again, it blends onto the racing line.
It does, and when you've got cars coming down there at 250 plus K in the virtual world, it's not easy to pick your marks and shoot it. Just look back at what we saw at the opening lap there as David Coleman now comes into the lane. That's a stellar first stint for him, 14 laps in the books.
Yeah,
well and truly on fumes there would be David Coleman, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I'd imagine so too. So this is going to be interesting to see here. It's just going to be pit for fuel, maybe tyres to try and last to the end. Let's see if Warboys can try and pull a little undercut here. if there's any potential for one. Oh, that looked a bit leery there, and wide through the final corner. Coleman already out of the box and approaching the pit exit. He's going to potentially get the lead from this. It's going to be close. There's Coleman at the bottom of the frame. Warboys behind. The lead changes in the pit cycle.
That extra lap really won it for him there, didn't it? David Coleman beautifully played. And now Blake Warboys is in the position where he has to do the work. That he was like 1.5 seconds clear was Warboys prior to them pitting, and he comes out half a second behind.
Yeah, I think a big part of that was the slight mistakes that Warboys made coming out of the pits. It'll be very difficult to get back up to speed in these cars as we look a bit further back here at the fight between Justin McLean and now Brenton Nitschke, because McLean is continuing to lose touch with Connor Nixon. The gap is continuing to extend there with 108.1 for Nixon. I believe part of that might be due to the pit cycle. No, actually. A slight mistake for Nixon as there's lots of dust and smoke being kicked up throughout this field down at Dandenong Road. Here is a replay. Meanwhile, Justin McLean actually not without a bit of contact there involved with Connor Nixon. That is the reason why that gap is the way it was. Once they came out of the pits, they were actually closer than we thought, Dan.
Yeah, and he was really fortunate there not to get served off into the weeds at the end of turn with a little bit of contact in the back end. The battle back at the sharp end of the field, however, between Dave Coleman and Blake Warboys has dropped down to 0.3 of a second. And now's the time we get to see Coleman get the elbows out. We've seen him in a few other series, and right, Reese, he looks a little stressed, but Reese, you had the pleasure of commentating on him a few times. How is he for trying to get around? He's a pretty tough competitor when it's all said and done.
Yeah, he definitely is, but Blake Warboys definitely a pacey driver as well. So I think these guys are evenly matched. I mean, there was only 1.5 tenths between them in qualifying. And remember, the drivers only had 3 laps to get a time down. So I think on a true long race run is where we'll truly see who's the superior driver. At the moment, it looks like Warboys is superior on the exit of the final turn. Too much curb for David Coleman. And Warboys draws alongside coming into turn 1. Who's the last of the breakers? Well, it's going to be Blake Warboys because Coleman lifted out. And that is a bit of a shrewd run there. Oh, yeah, careful. Lock up. Oh, he has another go. Has another look. Incident ahead. Oh, no. Oh. I heard contact sounds there. I think Warboys might have made contact with Kevin Norman, who was spun there on the outside of turn 3.
Warboys does not look happy. You know, how good is it having these onboard cameras? They get a bonus point for actually running these cameras for us, and David Coleman needs a tick for his setup. It looks unbelievable. But yeah, no, that was definitely a big moment. And Warboys doesn't look happy. I think he may have sustained some damage from the lap car there as they come into even more traffic.
Oh dear! Oh, that's compromised Coleman. Andrew Teixeira on the grass and a poor re-entry in Dandenong Road. That has extended the gap for the lead. These guys are having their races defined by lap traffic, and Coleman runs deep into the final corner again. Oh dear. Okay, we're going to have to take another look here just to see what happened. And contact between the Commodore and the Mustang. The number 3 of Kevin Norman gets spun around, and the number 73 as well involved. And oh yeah, that I think, yeah, that's a slam dunk. No good, very naughty on the re-entry there. Oh dear. Well, tell you what, this race is only halfway through its life, and we've seen, oh dear.
There's a car on its roof there somewhere. What's going on there?
Oh lordy, what on earth is going on? That's Craig Spencer in the 773 who somehow found himself on his driver's side window. Meanwhile, an escape without permission. Remember, the no escape rule is active, and Alex Zani has fallen afoul of that. He has been disqualified from the race. Drivers do have to be aware that they need to ask permission from race control to tow their cars if they have a crash.
And this is a new rule for us as we're looking into a replay here. So what is it we're looking at? Is this the answer to what happened to that car on its side? Yep, there it is. Yep.
There was half a chance that he could have saved that, but that's very unfortunate there for
definitely turtled the Mustang quite badly. This, yeah, has Spencer.
Yep, and it looks like he's actually been removed from the server by race control. I'm not too sure what the reasoning behind that was. We don't have access, of course, to the in-sim voice chat or anything like that, so we'll have to figure that out later. But we do have a motor race still to conduct here, and that is a pass there in turn 1. Goodness me, what a run it is for a few of these drivers. It's Christopher Blanchard and Dean Powell, who we take a look at on the Zoom feed there in car 999. Great fight between these two, Daniel, for 12th position.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It doesn't matter where you look up and down the field. There's a great scrap going on. These two, there's a little bit separating them, 0.4 of a second here at the moment, with Blanchard just starting to zero in on the back end. He was a little bit slower last time by, only a 0.1 of a second slower, mind you, but he is starting to come into his own here. Very aggressive under the brakes there. He gets the car pulled up nicely, but just suffers a little bit on the drive out.
Indeed he does. We've had another black flag come in meanwhile for Jack Gray, winner of the Dev Cup race, and I'm not aware of the reason for it, but I'm sure we'll get that information very soon. Regardless, a black flag from race control. Gray currently smack dab in the midfield at the moment in 18th place, and he's getting close to going down, but immediately pulls into the pits to serve that drive-through penalty. Race control assigned to him. Here's the battle for 7th meanwhile. Hayden, Anthony Jewell and Josh Drake really going at it here, and they haven't got far ahead. Oh, Kevin Norman ahead has another issue and spins it around. That compromises the both of them. That spun around Anthony Jewell.
Yeah. Some days are just not your days, and you don't feel great when it costs other guys their race as well. So you do have to feel for Kevin Norman. He's had a pretty rough run, and he's ended up in some pretty tough spots and costing guys a good night. So, you don't want to do it. You don't feel great about it, but it is an unfortunate part of it. That sometimes when you slip, there's nowhere for the other guy to go.
We also saw Ross Thalen stopped on the run out of the final corner. He's gotten back going again, but unfortunately for him, fallen down to 35th position now. It's been a very rough race for many drivers out there, but mercifully for those at the back, we only have 16 minutes to go in this race, and Blake Warboys is the one in control at the moment, leading by 3 seconds. Here's Dandenong Road then, and we'll see the number 3 come in here, and unfortunately have a spin on the exit as the cars go streaming by. This has been a very popular place for drivers to go off, and I think it's just... Oh, yeah, there we go. He actually lost it on the way into the corner, and, I mean, he potentially tried to recover it. It does get worse. Spencer backing off the racetrack there, but some further issues, evidently. Oh, dear, yeah. A couple of cars almost coming together there on the exit. Yeah, goodness me, Dan, that corner has been an absolute danger zone in this race, hasn't it?
It's one of the trickiest ones out there for all these guys. It's downhill, heavy braking and trying to get those cars turned, and these cars don't like turning at the time when you're flat on the brakes, as we watch the guys working their way back down into turn 9 again, with Gray, Hoffman and Freeman all in the mix here. But it's just one of those tough ones. It's trying to get the car settled, rotated, turned and go again, and you got to feel a bit for the guys that have had some issues with adapting to this, and it is, as we saw in the development series, fixed setup for all of these guys, so it may not suit everyone's cup of tea with the way the setup works, but it's one of those things that the guys really got to adapt to get the most out of it.
And it's a good thing, really, isn't it? Like, it levels the playing field, I think. A lot of the time, you can ultimately say that, the man on the day had a better setup than you. But in reality, these guys today all have exactly the same setup. So if you adapt to it, you will win the race.
Yeah, adaptability is the name of the game when you're driving in a fixed setup series, and it's the drivers who are the most adaptable who will come out on top. The thing is, though, I believe one thing that the drivers can adjust on the fly in the car is the brake bias, so that could alter the behavior of the car, if only a little bit in the braking zones. If you're having trouble with locking up into this corner, you can dial the brake bias back a little bit, as that's a problem there for Jack Gray. He ran deep in Dandenong Road. Maybe the brake bias a little bit too far forward for him. Loses the position to Andrew Hoffman, who makes his way up into the top 20.
13 minutes remaining in our race here, and Wallboy is still sitting out at the front there. He got that move done back over Dave Coleman. He's ending on this very straight, actually, as we look at something here.
Now, looks like another position lost there for Jack Gray. That's Michael Freeman making his way past, and we see Connor Nixon coming up to lap these guys. Oh no, that's a big problem there for Hoffman. He came a cropper of the curbs in the chicane, I believe, and that's going to be all the hard work he just did gone out of contention. Let's move a little bit further up the field. Meanwhile, we right on board with Nathan Brown. He's chasing down Cameron Edwards, who finished second in the Development Cup race, and this could be a good battle here, because 3/10 taken out of Edwards on the last lap here, Dan. Let's see what Nathan Brown can do.
Yeah, Nathan Brown's moved up pretty smartly throughout the course of the season, of this race, sorry, with all the incidents seen go on. So 21 positions to his advantage there, and he's working his way up quite nicely towards that 22nd spot, and what will soon be 15th or 14th position, sorry, on the grid there. So we'll keep an eye on that one. One of the interesting ones, and I'm sure a lot of the viewers may be looking and going, where are all the Mustangs? It's a very Holden-centric field, this season. 46 drivers, 34 taking their stop in the Commodore this season, and 12 of them in the Mustang.
Safety car has been called by race control. This is interesting. It seems that there's someone stopped out on circuit. I'm looking for them. The safety car has been scrambled and has taken up the field. I'm not seeing anyone with a big crash out there. What has gone on?
Yeah, I'm looking for the same thing, but not a car out there. But it will definitely spice up that last 10 minutes of this race, with the gap that Wallboys had accumulated 4.5 seconds all but wiped out now.
And the safety car is having to let people by to pick up Wallboys. It looks like the safety car was released a little too early, potentially. And Wallboys just making his way through turns 2 and 3 now. Safety car on the exit of turn 4. So now we'll be able to compress this field back together and potentially get going for an actual 5-minute dash in the dying stages of this race. This is a very interesting call. Again, we're not quite sure what the safety car's been brought out for, because nothing has immediately jumped out to me as happening on the track here. These drivers are going to have to check up here. Safety car on the back stretch. Everyone be aware. So yeah, this is quite interesting, Hayden.
This has brought a big hunk of paprika into the mix. This is spiced the curry up in a big way. So not sure what our incident is. Hopefully we're going to get some word on that real soon. But we are looking at a replay. This potentially could be the cause of our safety car. That's Michael Ladder. He's going in real hot, really, really hot. And that's a big lock up. And he's deep in the weeds there.
Seems that he gets stuck in the fence, we're hearing from producer Jay Kennedy. So he got out of the gravel trap at Dandenong Road all right, but then, oh no, just spun up the wheels and got wedged in the barrier.
No. Oh, yeah, you got to feel for him. That's a pretty rough way to end your night, isn't it?
That's a real shame there for Michael Ladder. He had a bit of an up and down race, didn't he? Started in 34th place and was gradually working his way up, but yeah, that's going to be the end of his race for now. He's going to have to deal with the towing time that iRacing gives you when you escape back to the garage. We might not see him out before the end of the race, but potentially he'll come out with a couple of laps to go and be able to take the checkered flag. Either way, Safety car out, and the field is compressed. Crucially, Daniel, this is going to give a second chance to David Coleman, potentially also to Justin McLean. Brenton Nitschke finds himself in 4th, and Tim Nicol up into 5th. A very scrambled set of positions outside that top 2.
Yeah, the guys a little bit further back have got everything to go for here now, and we saw it at the start of the race with the run into turn 1. A couple of big moves. Let's see whether we see that again at this one, but as you know, restarts breed restarts. It's the age-old racing adage there, but the guys a little bit further back definitely can position themselves well here for a run. The gap that we saw Warboys accumulate after he managed to get past Coleman did push out almost to 6 seconds at one point, and then just as we got to the safety car, it was back down to 4.3. So Coleman looking still very racy. His tyres marginally better off than what we saw from Coleman. There's only a lap difference between these two, and maybe a little bit of fuel in it at the end. So a lot to play on for Coleman here. McLean, Nitschke, as you mentioned, are right in contention though to have a good solid crack at it.
Yeah, and what we've also got to consider is tyre life as well. These cars are notorious for having a very short window of optimum performance, and they drop off quite substantially after about 10 or so laps. So these guys will be trying to nurse these tyres to the end, I'd imagine. One driver that we haven't mentioned yet, Hayden, is Scotty Van Loon. He's currently in 15th. Remember, he started pretty much dead last, and he has made up 26 positions here just by staying out of trouble. That's magnificent.
Yeah, it's a huge credit to Scotty Van Loon, actually, and he's out there setting some pretty reasonable times, staying out of trouble and getting the job done. Moving up 26 positions is absolutely phenomenal effort from him. So, and this is something that you see throughout the series will really play the part. It's the guys that stay out of trouble and do the right things that accumulate the points that you need to actually be there at the pointy end. You don't necessarily need to win every single race to be a hot shot as we restart this race.
Yeah, and it looked like David Coleman was giving Blake Warboys a real hurry-up coming out of the last corner. Of course, the leader controls the start once the safety car peels in. And there we go, through turn 1, 2, and 3. Drivers trying to sort out their positions here, but a good restart from Warboys. David Coleman is right with him, though, as we check out further back in the field. Drivers making their way through to this chicane. That's Jake Burgess chasing down Scotty Van Loon, and a really good exit there. This could be a change for 15th position, depending on the run that he gets down the straight. Ever so slight closing of the gap, and he might draw alongside on the way into turn 9. Will Van Loon give him the space he needs? No, he'll go deep, and Burgess has to yield there. Coming into Dandenong Road as, oh dear, got two cars coming together. Chris Nankiville and Anthony Jewell making contact in that slow left-hand corner. Oh,
yeah.
Easy does it, Anthony Jewell. Sorry to interrupt there, Daniel. Go on.
No, he's pushing very, very hard to gain those last spots there. But we just saw from that top shot down into turn 9 there, you can see that battle between Jake Burgess, and Scotty Van Loon still heating up. So those two inseparable at the moment, 0.3 of a second. Cam Edwards, though, looks like he's having still that same connection issue that we saw earlier on for him in the development series too. But he's holding on there nicely now to 12th position. The guys out front, though, starting to stretch the gap already. Warboys and Coleman get a little bit of a reprieve here from the likes of McLean and Nitschke behind.
Yeah, have a look at the pressure that he's piling on here, Hayden. Look at this.
Yeah, just a couple of tenths in it here. So Coleman is not wasting this restart. So he's got 4 minutes and 40 seconds of racing left to go here, and he's well and truly in with a shout. So he's letting him know that he's there. He's letting him know that I'm not going to back off of this here, Mr. Warboys. So we're going to have to race all the way to the finish line, and I'm going to be right under your wing or right next to you the whole time.
Little bit of a wiggle on the exit of the final corner, though. That gives Warboys a slight bit of breathing room as they come across the line to start lap 30. And a look, he's moving around in the mirrors. The psychological games are starting to be played here in the last 4 minutes of this race. Into the chicane. Who comes off the best? Really good curb usage from Blake Warboys. He positioned that car perfectly, but it's the exit of the corner here that is the real difference maker. And it seems that Warboys just extending the gap out slightly on the way onto the back straight away. look like this top two starting to make tracks on the rest of the field. McLean is holding on to third very nicely, and it seems that his technical issues are over for now, but who knows, one mistake and he'll be right in the clutches of Brenton Nitschke. And Blake Warboys is locking up quite a bit at Dandenong Road. He's done that every lap so far since the restart. Oh no, that is Josh Drake at Dandenong Road. Careful on the rejoin, mate. Got to be careful there. He's going to have to let the whole field by. That is a disaster for Car AAA. We'll get a replay of that because Drake was in 6th place when that happened, Dan.
Well, he was, and now it looks like he's got that car back underway, but down in 22nd position. So it sucks that they have the spin. Here's the look at the replay down in the bottom half of the screen. Gets it loose on the exit of turn 7 there. And then there's some further contact right on the apex there, turn 9. So not all Drage's fault in that one, and he'll be really disappointed. You may see a potential side-to-side contact penalty coming for the car involved in that one. But front though, the top 3 really starting to get on with business here. Justin McLean looking pretty racy here. That gap's still continuing to come back to our top 2 at the moment.
Yeah, that it is. And oh dear, problem there for James Zeitz. Goes off into the grass, but he'll rejoin, I think, without too much drama. Meanwhile, have a look at this fight a bit further back. The battle for 7th. Oh, things are going off there. Easy does it, everybody. Michael Stewart leading that pack. And have a look at this fight here. Goodness gracious. 4 cars in a row here. Jewel, Powell and Nankiville all in this fight. This is insane at the moment, and they're all fighting for that position in the last couple of minutes here. There's only going to be a couple of laps to go. Up the top of your screen, you can see David Coleman continuing to rail on the back of Blake Warboys here. Fishy Motorsports versus WKNP at the top of the field, and in that position. Oh, whoa. Oh, I'm loving this. There's moves being made everywhere, Hayden.
They're just throwing elbows about, so the guys are really starting to get pretty pushy with each other. Look at him under the wing. The battle for 7th is on and on for young and old. It's going to go into turn 9 here. This is going to be side by side. Watch this. Look at that. Not an inch between them. Big move. He's got it done, but this is a great racing, and this is what racing's all about. Even while we've got a great race happening for first, astounding guys are fighting for their life.
Yeah, looks like the battle has calmed down for now, though, as they managed to sort themselves out there. Final lap, and Blake Warboys only led by 3/10 at the line. Can David Coleman overcome him here? Both of our leaders on the Zoom feed, you can see the concentration in their features. Warboys has a clear track ahead of him, at least until he gets to Kevin Norman a few seconds ahead, but he won't be worrying about that. He'll be looking in his mirrors. He'll be keeping an eye on David Coleman as he tries to get the slipstream down the back stretch here. I think the gap is a little bit too big for a move into turn 9, but one mistake through the S's will change everything for David Coleman and Blake Warboys. Nice smooth run through the S's. Down they go to Dandenong Road. The gap is closed by car 640. But at the moment, it seems Blake Warboys might just have this. It all came down to the final lap here, thanks to that safety car, and it's still piling the pressure on. But Warboys gets a clean exit out of the final corner, flashing the lights in celebration as he comes across the line to win round 1 of the Shannons NTE series. But David Coleman gave him one heck of a race, Dan.
Yeah, it was a cracking race. Both of those two guys to get across the line in the way they did, and just watching the eyes and the determination that we saw from Warboys there, just to make sure he got home with not too much issue. Further down the back of the field, as everyone still tries to work their way through, we've got more contact down in the back. I think that's Josh Drage. He's taken the front and rear ends off that Commodore, so that's very second hand for him. But there was some great replay. Oh, it will do, and we'll have a look. This is another one that I picked up as well between our series organiser Jake Burgess and Scotty Van Loon as well, down onto 4, and Burgess gets a bit of contact as a result of that one. So
watch this. Van Loon tries to get going, but the car wiggles and goes straight into the path of the pack behind, and that has ruined the race on the final lap even more for quite a few of these drivers. The track blocked coming out of turn 4 on the final lap for those guys. But far away from all of that. Blake Warboys, winner chicken dinner. And he has gotten his 2023 championship off to the best possible start after finishing in the runner-up position last season, Hayden. This is a really good start for Blake.
Yeah, no, he'd be pretty stoked with that. But he's had some pretty healthy competition out there. He's definitely had to earn it. David Coleman was right with him, and we were lucky to have that that safety car. The Warboys have a bit of fun with it. He's got a bit of a SVG in him. He's doing some nice burnouts there on the start line. But it's a great start to the series for him. But we do have quite a few rounds to come, and consistency is absolutely key to win the Shannons NT ESeries.
That is a beautiful burnout. He's still going, leaving those skid marks on this racetrack. He's probably going to go all the way down to turn 1 at this rate with the amount of rear wheel spin he's got going. But nah, he's going to get it all gripped up on the way past the pit exit. And wow, I'm out of words, honestly, because that was really a fantastic bit of racing and a great way to start off the season. Warboys and Coleman, your top two, separated by just 3/10 at the line, with Justin McLean and Brenton Nitschke, along with Connor Nixon, rounding out the top 5. Nichols, Stewart, Powell, Jewell, and Nankerville rounding out the top 10, and some really good gains of position there. But tell you what, Dan, when we go to 11th, we'll see Nathan Brown really gaining.
Yeah, Brown up 25 spots, as we mentioned, throughout the course of the race. He did a stellar job to get that car up to where he finished. Ash Barella, we saw have a couple of moments throughout the middle of the race, but still comes home in 12th position. Christopher Blanchard there in 13th. Jake Burgess, who we saw starting the contact on that final lap of turn 4 there, gets himself back home in 14th. Brad Mitchell there 15th. Jack Gray, Cam Edwards from our Dev Series 16th and 17th respectively. Luke Holland, Anthony Hoffman, and Neil Woodburn rounding out the top 20.
And from there, we've got, of course, Scotty Van Loon, who he did a great job. It was a shame to see him tangled up in all that mess at the end there, because he'd worked really hard, still ending up over 20 positions in the green there, followed by Mark Peck, Shane Newens, John Van Ree, Josh Drage, Mick Power, Kevin Norman, who we've seen some issues for him as well. Hopefully he has a bit more luck next time out. Ryan Robson, Matthew McMillan, and James Zeitz.
Yeah, 29th and 30th, the first cars a lap down. They are joined there by Ross Thalen, Michael Freeman, Dylan Seitz, who got a penalty from race control. Andrew Teixeira, 3 laps down. Latta, 5 laps down. 7 laps down for Tiago Macedo, who started in 6th place. That's a real shame there for car number 5. Hopefully there's better luck for him as well in future rounds. Justin Cotter, 11 laps from the end, unfortunately retiring, along with Craig Spencer, Alex Zani, Michael Gore, and Tyrone Anderson. Well, 41 cars started the race. We had 36, I believe, or 35 taking the checkered flag. And wow, that is quite the start that we've got there for the opening round of the Shannons NT ESeries. We're joined in the commentary box by our race winner, Blake Warboys. Really good start for 2023 campaign, Blake, but David certainly gave you a race, didn't he?
Oh, he sure did. David's been, getting quicker and quicker, and so has the whole Fishy team. So, and they're always good fun to race against. So, yeah, had fun. Got a bit of damage there towards the end with a probably an unsafe rejoin or flick spin, which probably started costing me a little bit. But yeah, good to come away with the win and a good bag of points.
Yeah, very good bag of points indeed to start off 2023. That safety car right towards the end, did you feel that you were under threat there as you came on to take the green flag? I noticed that Coleman was giving you a bit of a hurry up out of the last corner.
Yeah, he was definitely applying the pressure, probably trying to go for like a Shane Van Gisbergen-esque move. But yeah, once they're sort of beside you, they sort of lost their advantage. If they can't pick what you're doing, and it's quite hard to do in the sim. So yeah, once he sort of got beside me, I was like, oh, I should be able to get a fairly decent jump here. But yeah, got the jump and was able to sort of control the pace from there.
Daytona is the next race we come up to. A very a different kind of circuit for these cars, but the slipstream will certainly be king there.
Oh, 100%. Slipstream was definitely a big factor here tonight, especially with the low wing that we were supplied with the setup. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of setup we get for Daytona. But the slipstream definitely won't help in qualifying, but during the race, you got some teammates around you to definitely help. But it should make for some great racing, and I love the Roval circuits. They're always good fun.
Yeah, certainly in agreement with you there, Blake. Congratulations. Before we let you go, anyone you'd like to thank for your top step of the podium?
Shout out to the team, WKMP Sim Sports. Always good fun when we can. It's great to have, a few of our younger guys and our guys from Vets jumping in for this series, so we can all sort of have some fun together. Don't get to do that enough, so this is good. The whole Wodonga Karts and Parts team heading to Wodonga next weekend for the Vicky State titles as part of a deal with them, so to get me back in a go-kart after about 8 months. So shout out to those guys. LGK Karts Australia, Super Cheap Auto, Rebel, ECF, and Shannons, and the whole broadcast team and the guys in the background for doing a great job with the series.
Thanks very much for joining us, Blake Warboys. Hopefully we get plenty more chances to chat with you throughout the season. Second place on the road was David Coleman. We'll leave it to Daniel Leet to ask him about his race.
Thanks, Reece. David, congratulations, mate. Hard fought second place for you tonight against Blake Warboys. Talk us through your race there. It was a great getaway from you. And what was going through your mind going into that first round of pit stops?
Pit stops, I thought I'd be alright because I got that extra lap in. So it was a little strategic to let him through and try to do the toe. But being Blake, I just thought it's probably better off just letting him go through because he's going to get me anyway. But yeah, just that extra lap, probably, I think I gained like a second on him. I don't know if he got traffic on his outlap or anything like that. So I was a bit surprised to come out, like, I think it was about a second in turn one. So, yeah, the pit stops was good.
Yeah, it worked out quite well for you there. And going on through the course of the race, we saw Blake close down pretty quickly on you. The lap traffic was probably the deciding factor in the change of position between yourselves, with the guys just maybe not picking the opportunities where to sidestep.
Nah, well, I think Blake got tangled and it looked like he had a little bit of side on, like, driver's side damage from that incident at turn 3. And I did take a bit of an avoiding action to think it down in the road, and that cost me about 3 seconds, but then the gap just maintained until that safety car came out. But I was actually praying for a safety car and just tried to look after the tyres, which probably let me have a bit of a fight, but I just couldn't get him in the end.
Yeah, well, that was the next point, is the safety car there, and you had a fairly good run there. It was about 0.3 of a second between yourselves getting into the final stages of the race. Did you think there was any opportunities that you could possibly exploit to get the car up into the first position?
Yeah, the last corner, it doesn't matter. Every race I've done around here, like, I get a good drive, but then it just gets that secondary wheel spin, like on that direction change. And that seems to just cost that run into turn 1. And with the low wing, I wasn't probably going to be confident in making a move into turn 1. So I think probably the exit of Dandenong was my option, but it just didn't happen. So, but I'm not complaining with P2 against Blake. He's a pretty good driver. So, and it was a tight race, we won. So it was good fun.
Yeah, a really good race. Next time out, we're off to Daytona. Very quick circuit again, much like here tonight. But what are your thoughts on that one? It's going to be obviously probably another low wing circuit. Speed is going to be a key one here with the gear ratios in these cars.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think you want to be the leader. I think you want to be the car, second or third or whatever pack you're in, because just the slipstream, and if they do low wing, the slipstream is going to be so powerful around there. And all you got to do is get a good run at the last corner out of the bus stop, and then you're going to pass the car in front. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully it's got a little bit of wing, because from the look of the lap traffic, I think a few struggled with the low wing here today. So if they can maybe go, at happy in between, I think it might improve the racing through the whole field for next week.
Absolutely, mate. Well, look, again, congratulations on the second step of the podium tonight. It was a great run. Before we let you go, is there anyone you need to give a quick thanks to?
I better thank all the fishy boys, West End Motor Group, Precision Sim Training, Battery Warehouse, Early Beach for Relax Marine and Game Fishing, Infinity Design, DC Shades, and Adrenaline Images. And I'll thank you guys for putting on a good show too, boys. Thank you.
No worries at all, mate. Happy to do it. Hope to see you back out on track at Daytona in a couple of weeks' time.
Thanks, boys. Have a good night.
Yeah, pretty great run from David Coleman there. Final driver interview for the night. Hayden's got Justin McLean here, who finished in third. A very strong result there.
How are you guys? Yeah, it was a good finish in the end.
Yeah, so we seen you towards the end after the restart there, Justin. You started getting pretty racy. You know, you were sort of there or thereabouts, starting to get into the mix of things. Did you reckon you had a chance of getting back up with Coleman and Warboys?
To be honest, not really. Once I saw that car on the side, I thought there was going to be a safety car, so I sort of cooled the jets a little bit, started saving tyres a little bit, and yeah, that was really it. I was sort of just looking after tyres in case, try and get through on Connor, and then that safety car Connor pitted in, and I took a freebie.
Yeah, you never say no to a freebie. And how'd you go tonight? You know, overall, you seem to stay out of trouble for the most part. You're a bit of a regular here at the NTE series. You think you're a bit of a chance to be at the pointy end towards the end of the season?
Yeah, I think so. I'll definitely hopefully be towards the front, I think. I don't know whether I've got anything for Blake or even David for that matter, but hopefully just good, strong, consistent results, and yeah, try and keep it nice and clean.
And we're heading to Daytona here in a few weeks' time. How do you think you'll go with the Commodore at that circuit?
Depends, to be honest. The setup here had very low wing, and I usually run a bit more wing than that, so to see what we get at Daytona, hopefully there's a little bit more wing. It just adds a bit of stability under brakes and stuff, I think, but everyone's got the same setup to deal with, so we'll just see how we go, I guess.
Definitely a matter of everyone's given the same cards in this series, and it's up to you how you play them. And I suppose that's something that's really sort of a lot of lap traffic and a lot of issues for a lot of the guys. Do you think a bit more wing would help with that, Justin?
I think so, mate. Yeah, I don't want to speak ill of anyone, but there's a big spread of skill level usually in the NTE series, and usually the setups are, I guess you'd say, really safe, and like if I want a good setup, really a good safe setup, usually my go-to's been the NTE series ones, but this one was a bit of a left field type of setup, but I adapted to it, and yeah, it seems a lot of the front guys did, but yeah, some didn't, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely seems to be the case. And before we let you go here, Justin, anyone you want to thank or give a bit of a shout out to?
Yeah, I'll say thanks to the boys at 9.5 SimSport for having me on board and helping me along with my racing a bit. A few of the sponsors: Racecraft, Racing News, Cutting Edge Tracks, RB Media, and Ross at Turn In Race Apparel and RSW Graphics.
Beautiful. So we wish you for the rest of the season here, Justin, and I expect to be talking to you again at some stage.
Thanks, mate. I hope so too.
Fantastic race from Justin McLean. Fantastic race from all of our top three. But of course, we have to look forward to the next round on the 26th of March at 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight, and that is 6:30 in the Northern Territory. We're going to be racing in the dark at the Daytona Road Course. Looking forward to that one, as I'm sure all of you are. Big thanks, everybody, for tuning in here for the first round of the Shannons NTE series for 2023, and well, we've got a full season of this coming up for you, and we do encourage you to check out all of our series sponsors on the left side of your screen, as well as Shannons Insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Thanks very much, and make sure that you give us a like and a follow on all of our social media platforms. We are SimSpeed TV on Twitter, SimSpeed here on YouTube. We're also on Twitch and Facebook as well. I'm Reese Gardner with Daniel Leet and Hayden McMahon along with me in the comms box, and Jay Kennedy on production. From all of us here at SimSpeed TV, goodbye for now, but not forever.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.